So just about me. Um, so I know that there's a big Akbar movement now, but this is not the first time that people have basically there've been different waves of people living in Nigeria, living in Africa. And my own wave was in 2005. So I used to work at MTN as a software developer. So I worked in MTN for 3 years, 2000 to 2005. And around 2004, we saw a movement, like quite a bunch of people just left the country in different sectors and all that. So that was me. So 2005, I moved to the UK with my wife. We had been married, I think, a year and a half at the time. So I started immediately. I started looking for work. The difference with me was I was already like a software developer, but the market was also quite different from the market you are walking into right now. So when I came into the country, there was a lot of emphasis on UK work experience. I know you probably still get that as well. There was very little respect for the experience I brought in. I mean, I thought that working for a multinational like MTN would make a way for me in the UK or give me some form of open doors, but it didn't necessarily do that. So I was a little bit shocked actually when I came into the system, and I was a Java programmer. There were lots of agencies will ask me, do you have UK work experience? So one day I had to challenge one of the agencies or the employment agent. I said, why are you asking? I said, is Java different in Nigeria or in the UK from what's in America? It's the same Java. And I was really frustrated with that. But I kept at it. And one of the things that worked for me was there were a bunch of people who I knew were already living in the UK and were working as professionals in tech. So one of them one day came to my house, my sister's house where I was staying at the time, and he just reformatted my CV, and that made a huge difference. So that's one of the things that we can help you with. Sometimes you have the skills, you have everything you need, but you just don't have the right things in the right places. You don't have the right CV format. So for example, many CVs I see from Nigeria, the first thing you see academic qualifications and all that. And I'll go to that in a minute. People don't care too much about that in the UK. So yeah, the emphasis is a little bit different, but I'll come to that in the next slide. So by June, after all the hustle and praying and everything, I got 2 jobs. So suddenly, I was spoiled for choice. But before then, there was also someone else who, when I was going for my first interview, she was already like a software developer manager. So my sister's friend. So she offered to just run a quick mock interview session. And I found it really helpful. And she gave me feedback, and that gave me the boost and the confidence to go for that interview. So I've got loads of stories I can tell, but let me take you bit by bit. So went for the first interview, a bunch of, I think there were 2-3 stages, got the job. Went for the second one as well, got the job. Interestingly, the day I went for the second interview, I didn't even know I'd left London, I'd gone to Kent. I didn't know I'd left all the zones, so I didn't have enough money. So on my way back, so when I got there, I realized I'd completely gone out. My ticket was no longer valid. So the train guy basically kept me. Sorry, 1 second. I'm just trying to provide someone with the link. The train guy basically kept me and said he was going to fine me. So I had to like pay a fine. So that was one of my welcome to the UK experiences. Went for the interview anyway. I got the second job as well, so that was good. But also I did quite a bunch of other interviews that I didn't get. I remember I went to Wales for an interview, and when I got there, I'd never seen a team. I'd never seen such a big team before. So the guy, I think they had about 300 developers. This was the DVLA. And the guy, so at the point, the guy said, "Do you have any questions?" I said, "How many developers do you have?" He said, 300. I said, "So why are you still looking for more?" I guess that basically just showed my lack of experience of how big the team was. So those were some of the experiences I had in my early days. Yeah, but I got to job, first job. It was really good. It was a very good company. So let me just go to the next slide. So yeah, so these are some of the companies I've worked for. Google was the last one, but I worked for Sky. I worked for IBM. I worked for Friends. First company I worked for was a company called Friends Provident. It's now been acquired by Aviva. It's now called Friends Life, so it's a subsidiary of Aviva. So I worked for a bunch of companies. Some of them I also got some interviews that I can't even remember. So I did hundreds of applications. So I was speaking to someone yesterday who's looking for work, and I said, "Oh, which site have you been using?" And she mentioned some sites, but there's a site called jobserve.co.uk. If that's all you're going to take away from this today, if you don't know that site, go jobserve.co.uk. That is the repository. As far as I know, almost all the jobs I've gotten, apart from the Google job, came through JobServe. So I'll send in one night, I'll just sit down and send hundreds of applications every day. And eventually I was able to get interviews. I think I interviewed for about 20, 21, or maybe 22 roles. Out of that, I got about 8 jobs. There are 7 of them listed. There's a particular company I got a job in. I never took the job. It was the same job I got when I got a friend of a Provident job. So I didn't take it. So I can't remember the company now. It's, yeah, I'll share the link afterward. It's been, so the company has been acquired. There's a lot of acquisition that always happens in the UK. One of the things you've got to realize and learn about the UK is, unlike many of the names I see are Nigerian names, like in Nigeria, where you can count on your fingers the number of companies that you can aspire to work for, UK is not like that. I was completing a form like last week for some project we're doing with the NHS, and they were saying that small and medium enterprise companies, any company that turns over annual turnover less than 50 million pounds. So in a big economy, there are lots of companies. What they would consider small is already like super big where we come from. So when you're looking for companies, don't just start looking for, just go to where the opportunities are and apply en masse, because that's what you'll find. So what have I learned in the process? I've learned that in the UK, experience counts. Yes, get your qualifications and let your qualification open the doors, but experience does count. And I'll give you a very quick example. So the Friends Provident job I went to, and again, I just come from Nigeria. So at the time, I was working in IT. So as far as I could tell, the best software developers were Indians. So after my first test, as I was working out, I saw this guy, Asian looking guy, so I assumed he was Indian. And in my mind, I just said, "Oh no, I've lost this job. This guy's going to get it." So thank God I didn't even talk to him, because if I'd spoken to him, I would have lost my confidence completely. So I went in, I got home, I think a day or 2 days later, I got called for the on-site interview, which was like a half-day interview. You did presentations, you wrote code, you did analysis, you did quite a lot of things. So, and then after that, we had lunch. So after all that, I think at that lunch event, I was now we're introducing ourselves. So this guy now was telling them what he had done. I then realized, like I said, I studied physics actually at Obafemi University in Ife. Then I had some experience working as a software developer. I'd worked in MTN for 3 years. This gentleman had a first degree in computer science from Imperial College. He had a master's in whatever, I can't remember, from University College London, UCL, and had a PhD from University of Surrey. So this is why I was saying that if he had told me his credentials at the first time, if I had spoken to him at the first time, I probably wouldn't have showed up for the second interview, because I would just assume that, no, I'm not going to get this job. But what was fantastic about it was, in the end, both of us got the job. I had a BS with 3 years work experience, of about 3 or 4, 5 years work experience at the time. Plus, if I count my internships and my NYSC, which is actually value work experience, he had been studying all his life, and he had a PhD in artificial intelligence, which is all the rave now. So he had a PhD in artificial intelligence in 2004 or something like that. So I would have found that completely intimidating. But when both of us started work at Friends Providence, we started from the same team. We're earning exactly the same salary. He didn't earn more for his PhD than I earned more from my work experience. It is true that there are places we would have gone to that I wouldn't have been able to work. So, for example, if we're doing an artificial intelligence, if I'd gone to Italy for a role that involved artificial intelligence, I would have zero clue. But he had come into my own space. So in my space, I was great. I was able to hold my own. We worked together for quite a while, and honestly, my experience really counted, and people respected my experience. And he also respected my experience. He didn't necessarily disrespect me. He didn't say, "Do you know who I am? I've got a PhD." There was none of that. It was a mutual learning experience, and that's where you realize that sometimes spending too much time in studying doesn't really count too much. I know it does count, but its experience also counts. Let me put it that way. I'd like you guys to please complete the survey. If you can go to https://bit.ly/Dufina survey. I just need the data, just to understand who is here, so I can pitch the presentation at the right level. It's an anonymous survey. I won't know who you are. We're not collecting any personal data. It's just to know a bit of background about you. So one of the things, like I said, I learned, first one, experience counts. The second one is that there's room for everybody. So in my experience working in the UK, I've met people who studied law, who are doing software testing, studied law, who are working as project managers, or even don't have a degree sometimes, but they've just been able to pull themselves up and learn. So there's room for everybody. So if you are here, you're trying to get into tech, I just want to encourage you that there's room. However, there's a lot of hard work involved. So I'm not going to sell a story that's unrealistic to you. I'll tell you that you have to work very hard. And in my own experience, I have to work hard. I'm a person of faith. I trusted God. I prayed. I did everything I needed to do on the spiritual side, but also I worked really hard. Those days when I was looking for work, if I got those 2 jobs, I'd wake up early, like I was going to work, dress up, just waiting for agencies to call. And I'll get those calls, and I was in the right space of mind. Then in the afternoons and evenings, I'll study. Then in the night, I'll apply. I could apply for 100 jobs, whether I qualified or not. I just sent my CV out to all those agencies. So the hustle is important. The other thing I'd like to mention, just please complete that survey as I talk. The other thing I'd like to say is it is important to talk to people who understand your journey, people who know where you're coming from. And I found it. So before I came to the UK as well, I was already I had a PMP, so a project management professional certification. So I was really equipping myself before I left the country, took certifications and all that. And yes, those things open doors, but they don't necessarily. In the UK, your experience is valued a lot more than holding a piece of paper to their face. So if you're there with masters, like I know many of you would have masters and all that, let's help to shape that into experience to help you get a job. Because telling someone you have a master's doesn't necessarily mean they're going to offer you an opportunity. So I went to this project management conference. I was already working as a software engineer, but I wanted to move into project management. So I went there and I was networking and I met people. And when I just told people, they ask me, where are you from? I tell them, I just recently moved from Nigeria. I'm here and I'm looking for opportunities. They would just say, good luck. And I found that quite strange because I thought, ask me, how can you help? Do you guys have opportunities? That was done. So lots of people, spoken to lots of them, nothing. Then I think towards the end of the day, I saw one man from Nigeria and we got talking. So he said, so he basically, so I waited to just walk with him. So on his way to the train station, I walked with him, and this guy gave me a really what I spoke to him. He stayed at the train station with me for about 30 minutes in the cold. Downloaded, like, okay, this is what you do, this is where you find work, this is what you need to do, this is how you develop yourself. It was invaluable. And I know the difference is he had walked where I was planning to walk. So he understood my journey. He could pass on something really, he could pass something on to me that the others didn't understand. The others didn't get it. They just felt, well, go apply and you get a job. So if you are there, you could just complete that survey. Yeah, I'll just move on to the next slide. So things I've learned, experience, very important. Your background, yes, let's use it as strength to help you get into tech if you're really interested in it. There's room for everybody, but just know that it's not necessarily going to be easy. There's work to be done, but you need to find yourself in the right group. Okay. So where are the opportunities? So what I'll do is I'll run through some opportunities at a very high level. Then I've got one of my colleagues here, Emmanuel Akpan Dixon. He's going to run through in detail. We're going to go deep dive into data, opportunities in data, and I'll explain why we've chosen data as a place to focus on. Okay. So opportunities, and when I say opportunities, are opportunities you can relatively easily cross-train into. So they have 0 to 1 year experience opportunities in these areas. There are lots of other opportunities, but the opportunities you most likely go into with some measure of experience. So I'll start with, there's data analysis, there's IT help desk, there's software testing, there's cybersecurity, there's project coordination. You notice I'm using the word coordination, not project management, because that requires quite a bit of experience. And there's web development. So these are just things that we just handpicked, and I'll run through them very quickly at a high level. If you have questions, put them in chat. If I don't answer them now, I'll answer them later. So don't forget, if you have any questions, just put them in chat and we'll deal with them. So I said earlier that JobServe is the place to go to. For me, I found it worked. Almost all the interviews I got came from JobServe, and it's still working till today. So I know people that use it regularly. The only job that I got that was not from JobServe was my Google job. I had to apply directly on the Google website because Google doesn't use any of those external application sites. Well, at the time they went, I don't know about now. Okay, so now to become a web developer, you need to acquire these skills. Apart from that, there are some obviously technical. You need to have a flair for programming, love computers, etc. But these skills should give you like an opportunity to get the first job, to get a foot in the door. From my estimate, obviously people will learn at different, the pace of learning will be different. I think about 6 months should get there. So on JobServe, the day I did this presentation, I think it was about a couple of days ago, there were 1,792 opportunities over the previous 7 days. So I'm thinking about this again to compare the economies. When I was talking earlier about the fact that Nigeria being a small economy, you can count the companies that can employ you on your job, on your fingers. These are 1,792 opportunities for just one type of role. Obviously, there are some that would require a lot more experience than others, but this is just one job type within the world of tech. So when I say that there are only about 20 of us here, so think about 80-something people register for this. So really, there's room. Even if all 80 of us applied to be web developers, I'm not saying it's automatic, but there's room for us. There's definitely an opportunity there. The interviews involve technical tests, live coding. So again, you need to know your stuff. And if you can find a place to get experience, go for it. Get experience, right? So that's really important. So that's then project coordination. In my experience, a lot of people try to get into project coordination or being a project coordinator because basically it requires just a lot of common sense. So, but again, because in the UK they want relevant work experience, they want to see that you've used Microsoft projects before, Excel. If it's a software or related role, they want to see some Scrum, they want to see some project reporting, some MS Office. And again, just for project coordinator, I've got almost 2,500 opportunities. So think about it. Again, there's opportunity there as well. I mean, this is an area of not project coordination, so I've worked as senior, like a program manager, very senior within like the project management space. So again, this is an area I'm happy to like offer some additional insight if anyone is interested. The interviews involve a lot of scenario-based questions. So last year, I was helping a company in the health sector in the UK recruit for a product manager. And I had an experience with a gentleman from Nigeria. When I looked at his CV, I knew, just from looking at the CV, because of my background, I knew that this person didn't have the relevant experience, but he was trying so hard to fit his experience into the role. But I was shortlisted, so yeah, no big deal. Got into the interview. So I was asking, but I had to be fair. Like, if I'm interviewing, I'm not going to interview you because we are from my country, give you preference about other people. These are things we pray not to experience, and we complain about if someone shows bias. So when I was interviewing him, I noticed that he had done a lot of cramming, and he didn't have the experience. He couldn't defend what was on the CV. So I decided I was going to step a little bit out of my professional role and offer him some advice. So I told him, I said, at the end of the interview, I said, look, interview is over now. Let's have a chat. I said, hey, your CV says this. I asked you these questions. Unfortunately, you couldn't. It's on your CV, but you don't understand it enough to defend it. So I was just trying to explain to him, trying to give him guidance on, and he got really angry. He got very angry, got very defensive. And on one hand, I felt for him because from his CV, I knew he was a very senior guy from Nigeria. Maybe he was already a senior manager from a bank. And he was now trying to get this relatively mid-level role. So, and I could see the frustration. And I could just imagine what was going on with him. Most likely running out of cash and all that. But while I didn't think he had enough experience for the role because there were better suited candidates, I thought I could offer him some advice, but he wasn't happy at all. So again, this is something I'm happy to like basically give people advice on, because if you get a role, if you get a job, it's definitely going to be my joy, right? So but yeah, again, scenario based. It looks simple on paper when they tell you what the project coordinator does, but when you go through the interview process, there are lots of scenarios, a lot of questions they'll ask you that will basically filter out whether you know you understand the role or not. Right. So cybersecurity, I'll almost say that there are not too many entry-level roles here, but again, this is something that is going to be popular over the next few years. It's popular now, it's going to be popular. Like you can see, there are almost 5,000 roles here. It takes a bit longer to be proficient here. If you already have some IT background, this could be something you go into because it requires quite a few technical things, operating systems, understanding network security. So if you're from like a networking background, this could be something you look into. There are lots of opportunities, as you can see again here. Incident management, if you're already doing like things like IT support, these are areas you can look into and all that. But again, it requires a little bit of scripting. So technical tests, scenario-based questions, and just a good understanding of the industry. Obviously, here I think certifications also matter. So yeah, so something to consider. So software tester is another field that quite a lot of people get into as at entry level. Because back in the day, lots of people. Oh, you need my volume to be increased. Okay. Can you hear me now? Is it better? If you can hear me clearly, if you can just say yes through chat or something. Or maybe it's your volume because no one has complained about my audio. Okay. So I'll carry on. If you're still struggling to hear me, let me know. I can. Okay, I can change. Right. So software testing. A lot of people got into software testing because there was a lot of manual testing. Again, it basically had to do with the fact that you had to learn how to prepare test cases and all that. So lots of people got into it. At the time, there were loads and loads of Nigerians, people who didn't even know it. In fact, there was a very interesting experience I had of someone who I interviewed way back, and I could tell, when I saw the CV, I thought this guy was our guy. But the first question I asked him was obvious. He had just taken somebody's CV, taken the person's name out, put his name on it. He couldn't defend one item on his CV. On his CV, he had worked for almost all the biggest investment banks in the world. But you ask him basic questions, he just didn't even understand it. So a lot of people try to get into software testing, and for many people, this was their pathway into tech, and then they did this, and they ended up doing other things. So this requires a lot of common sense, but now there's some scripting, there's testing techniques, there's understanding of testing. So this is an area that that you can also explore if you're trying to get into it. But don't be like that gentleman who just thought you could change someone's CV and then get the job. You put in some work in there and look for an opportunity to get experience. Then the IT help desk, you can see that again, just telling you that there are opportunities. Like the day I said, there were over 8,000 jobs in IT help desk. Obviously, again, with varying levels of experience required. Some networking, Active Directory, lots of Microsoft. Many of the enterprises in the UK would be sort of Microsoft companies that use Microsoft technologies. But obviously, you may need to also learn things like Linux and things like that. But again, this is technical. So if you have a flair for technical stuff, if you studied things like engineering, there's no limitation because there are people who didn't study engineering who are not doing this. But if you have a flair for technical things, you've studied math, studied physics, studied, like I did, studied engineering, and you're trying to come into tech, this could be something you could explore. And I think I'm coming to the last bit now. Okay. And we'll spend a bit of time on data analysis. So data analysis, again, more than 3,500 roles. Data analysis itself, data analysts, again, varying levels of experience, but there are usually a lot of entry-level roles. So you find data analyst roles where really what they want you is a good knowledge of Excel. And Emmanuel will talk about that, or Dixon will talk about that shortly. It's just really, know your Excel well, Power BI, SQL, Python, reporting, understanding how to report. So that's it. From our experience, 3 to 6 months, even sometimes, because you could find entry-level roles that involve data entry. So yes, don't look down on it because you can do data entry for 3 months, and from there, you're able to find much more challenging roles, either within that organization or somewhere else, especially if it's a contract role, you can move. So there are opportunities here. We think within 3 months, you should be able to get yourself to start applying. And the other thing I'll say just about interviews, and we'll talk about that later on as well, is people sometimes get discouraged when they go for their first interview and it doesn't go well. Come on, don't be discouraged. Just, it's an experience. What you'll find is, this is secret software here I'm giving you. Interview questions tend to be very similar. So if you go for an interview and you fail that interview, instead of being sad and giving up and just thinking yourself, oh, what my world is over and all that, go back home, sit down, remember that interview, write down all the questions, and go and figure out how you would better answer them next time. Because I can promise you, out of all those interview questions, at least 1 or 2 of them will be repeated. And if you're better prepared for it this time, you'll answer it well. It got to a point, actually, my wife is a lawyer, and she was looking for work. My wife wrote a script. She had it was like going to act drama. Question, and she write up what the answer would be like. So, looking for a job is also like a full-time job. I mean, these are like life skills. Like, it's not something you just rock up to. Write a full script. When I was going for the interview at Google, for example, I did this. Wrote the question, wrote how I answer it, researched, thought about it, reflected on it, answered it again. I got to the interview. One of the questions I had practiced or had rehearsed. So at Google, you do 4 interviews back to back at the time. I don't know what the process is right now. So you come in, you meet, instead of missing a panel, they don't want people to be biased. So you meet 4 different people back to back. So the first interview, that went well. Second, I think it was the third interview. This lady just asked me a question I had spent like an hour the day before. So when she asked me that question, I just sat down, relaxed, adjusted myself, I just gave it to her from first principles. Started explaining from first principles. By the time I finished, that was the last question. She was just taking notes. It wasn't fine. I mean, I knew what I was doing, but I was also prepared. So these are some of the things that we can help you to do, to, just get you coached and prepared to really do well and to excel at getting roles in the UK. So, right. So now I am going to hand over to Dixon. So Dixon, I'll be your hand. So just tell me when to click on the next. You can unmute and you start talking if you're there. I'll go on mute. To avoid distractions, I'll also mute the video. And you can start talking, and I'll just be your hands and click on next because I've got this slide. Dixon, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Talks. Okay, so
we can't hear you though.
You can't hear me.
I like your afro.
We can hear you. We can hear you, Dixon.
So while Dixon is trying to fix his audio, so I used to work with some of this with Dixon. So after Google, I went to Nigeria. So I worked at Konga. So I was the pioneer chief technical officer at Konga, and I had the privilege of setting up the team. Like when I joined Konga, oh, you can hear him. So how come I'm the one that can't hear him? Okay, then if you can hear him, no problem. So, but there's a problem then, because you can hear Dixon. So I'll allow Dixon to talk. I will go on mute. Okay, actually, let me introduce Dixon. Then I'll allow him to talk. I don't know why I can't hear you. Maybe I'll join from my phone and listen.
Can you hear me now?
So that when you say next, I'll just introduce him. So we put together so that was the day we were really having a lot of data issues. You know, there was Konga. When I got there, I think there were about maybe 10, 15 people in the tech team. The team ended up being about 100 people, just hiring. So we're having lots of data issues, and someone said, you know, we have to find a solution to this data problem. So I was traveling, and I think I met the guy, like, again, your network, the guy that came to review my CV when I joined, when I came to the UK. I just saw him at the airport. We got talking. I said, Ebonwale Alpha. So I was telling him, he said, what are you doing? I just started this new role in Nigeria, Konga, I'm CTO. But the guy is a data specialist. So I said, we're having these data problems. What do you think? He said, you know what? Get a bunch of guys that know SQL and just start a team and let it grow from there. So I got back to Nigeria. I called the team a data engineering team. So I had a bunch of people into it. There's a guy called Abayomi. Abayomi now works in the UK, works for Jaguar Land Rover. There's Joseph Akonde, who's here. Joseph works for a company called HAPE. I don't know how you pronounce a company in Sweden. There's Dixon. Dixon works for a company called Vista and used to work for Trivago in Germany. There's Sheyi. Sheyi works with Zalando in Germany as well. So these are people that basically we work with when it comes to data. And then there was our DBA, Clement. Clement used to work for Amazon, now works for a company called Friends MTS in the UK as well. So a bunch of really experienced professionals, people who understand your journey. So I'll just allow Dixon to take us through the data parts, just go deep dive, tell you what the future could look like if you decide to go down the data path. Then I'll come back to you afterwards to wrap it up. Thank you.
Thank you, Talks. Thank you, everyone, and a good afternoon to everyone here, and a good morning to those who are currently in the morning time zone. Once again, it's a pleasure to be here, and today we are going to be talking about career paths within data. So please join me as we explore together. And if you at any point have any questions, please do well to drop them in the chat, and we would definitely respond to them. So yes, so folks, let's go. Thank you for volunteering to be my handyman in this case. Now, so introduction. By 2025, it is estimated that we are going to have about 463 exabytes of data. That's quite a lot. And that's even more than, I don't know, for many of us who lived around the time of DVDs, where you have like movies inserted on a disc plate. That's basically, we are going to have about 212K of those versions or CD plates if we continue. And this completely excludes data that gets created every day, or the ones that get copied, or the ones that get newly generated. So within the space of data, there are specific rules that help to ensure that you make sense out of data, basically. So everything you have around the world, your lifestyle, you wake up in the morning, you get out of bed, you follow a sequence of pattern, that's data in itself. And basically all of this amasses to a large volume of data that even we ourselves, that we produce them every day, and sometimes we are not quite aware of that. And this data is actually necessary for business stakeholders to ensure that it helps them make accurate business decisions. Okay, so let's go to the next slide, folks. Now we're going to start with the very first one. I mean, this is in no particular order, but we're just taking this so that you can all have an idea of what it is. So we're going to be talking about the data architect. And I term the data architect as the foundation. And who's a data architect? A data architect basically, as in every sense of the word architect, that if you're building a house, you call an architect to help you design what your house should look like. And that is exactly what a data architect does. But in this regards, this is only in terms of data. So a data architect is one who helps you design and build your data models to fulfill the business strategic needs, basically. What does that mean in layman terms? It means that a data architect is the person who you would go to help you envision or build out the model of what your business is going to look like in terms of the data storage. Now, the core skill sets for a data architect includes SQL. It's very paramount. You can't run away from that. Data modeling, that's also very important. And data modeling is basically the aspect of data that helps us think about how we want to store the data, storage size, what entities should be there, etc. The next bit is database design. So database design is basically just saying, I want to be able to know how my database is going to look like from start to end. And this is some of the core skill sets that a data architect must possess. Business skills, definitely. You need to understand the business very well to know what it is you want to build for them. And communication skills, your ability to communicate your ideas, your thought processes to stakeholders to ensure that they get carried along while you keep building this model is very, very important. And then the skill for analytic and problem solving, you should always have that the ability to think outside the box to solve problems. It's quite crucial. It's a necessity to have. Stakeholders who you would be working with includes domain experts, business owners, and chief information officers, short formed as CIOs. Salary range in this context for a data architect, experience is required, but within the UK, I think between 43 to 90K euros rather in Europe, between the ranges of 43 to 90K euros. I beg your pardon. So that's that for data architects. So let's go to the next one. So the next one we're going to be talking about is, okay, so let's dwell a bit on it, just a summary of it. So high level summary, data architects, right? Like I mentioned, they are the ones who design how the data is going to be collected. So data comes in different form, and I mentioned a very practical use case. You get out of the bed in the morning, your life follows a particular pattern. You get out of the bed, you wash your mouth, you do other things. That's a pattern. Now imagine that that is the same scenario for a business. You need the skill of a data architect to know how to collect that flow of information right? From where the information is coming from to where it should be going to, that's to the destination source, and basically how that information is going to end up at the desk or at the table of a stakeholder. And how do they do this? They collect business requirements from stakeholders, translate that business requirements into technical requirements, and define the standards and principles that governs the data. So a sub part of data architecture also deals with data governance, your ability to define what kind of data is made available to who, when, where, and how. The next bit of what data architect does is data architect builds and optimizes and also maintains conceptual and logical database models. So what this means simply is that for a data architect, there are three parts of we call them modeling. So there are three parts of modeling, which is the first, the conceptual, the logical, and the physical. So by conceptual, you think of a problem, a business problem. You begin to think, okay, what are the things that I need to have to be able to solve this problem in terms of the relationships that this data set should have. And then the logical model is where you begin to break that down and to say, okay, I have this, and I begin to tie these entities to something that is close to a real life being. And then the physical model is where you actually take your time to design how the data will be stored in the database. This is actually the most crucial part of data modeling. Okay, so the third part is that data architects determine how to source data and how that data is going to be distributed to provide valuable insights to stakeholders. And like I mentioned earlier, considering with the use case of our daily life patterns, the data architect has to know how that data is coming from, where that data is going to as the final destination. Then how do I present this data so that it makes sense? It's one thing to gather, collect information, but if you're not able to process that information to make meaningful insight out of it, it just becomes information and it becomes redundant. And as we all know, data gets obsolete very quickly. So the ability to process that data or that information into insights, actionable insights, is what gives or makes data architects quite handy, as I would put it. Thank you. So we'll go to an example of what a data architect is going to do. So here you just have a UML. We call it a UML, and UML just simply shows you how data in itself or how your flow of data is going to be organized when it comes into a database system. You can see you have your data sources, your data storage, and your real-time messaging if you want to do streaming or batch processing of data. And then you have where you can do some analytics stuff on them. So we have like a data store for your analytics processing, and then you have the final part where stakeholders can then use all the transformations that have been done to be able to create insights, which in this term is considered analytics, and then give stakeholders the ability to see what is even hidden beyond that. So this is a fair, quick overview of what it looks like for a data architect. Now, we'll just run through the skills again. Like I mentioned earlier, data architecture is the critical link between business and technology. Technical skills include data modeling, data governance. The non-technical skills, you have to be an analytical thinker. You have to be savvy with business knowledge and analysis. You should have a flair for problem solving. You should have some creativity, and this is developed over time with the number of problems or the kind of problems you solve. Be able to communicate and present your ideas to both technical and non-technical stakeholders. And of course, you should be able to collaborate with your peers. Good, so we'll go to the next one, the data analyst. Now, the data analysts, as I would call them, are very, very insightful persons, right? So they are the ones who I tag as the lens. And basically, we all know the basic function of what a lens does. A lens helps you magnify the unseen thing. So you go to a lab and then they put something under a petri dish, and then you have a big microscope, and then you look at it, and then you are able to see clearly every other thing hidden under the whatever that is, the solvent or anything. You're able to see clearly very fine what it is. And that's what the data analysts basically are. They help magnify business problems or business solutions to stakeholders, basically. So who are data analysts? The data analysts are folks in the data space who interpret, analyze, and present insights gotten from data in a comprehensive report and dashboard, basically. So, like being a lens, they just make sure that everything that they think or they can see, like the FBI agents, just bring it to the fore and make sure that everyone is well aware of it. Now, what are the core skill sets you will need as a data analyst? You definitely need SQL. You will need data visualization skills / dashboard creation skill, and dashboard applications include like ClickView, Tableau, Power BI, Looker, etc. There are quite a couple in the market. And then, yes, you need Microsoft Excel skill. You can't run away from that because you need to tabulate. You need to do some quick cuts on your your Excel document to be able to present to generate insights. And then you also need analytical thinking skills. Your knowledge of business domain is very important, and equally your communication skill. Now, who are the stakeholders you'll be reaching out to or working with? Include executive team, business units, and business unit cuts across all, whether it's internal, whether it's external. And basically, your salary range should be between 40 to 70,000 euros. If that's, I think that's pounds rather, in the UK. And it has a low barrier for entry level. So it means that you don't have to be super experienced to get into the data analytics field. You could just start out by being able to manipulate data from Excel, and that's would be a go into the space of data analysis. Now, we'll talk a bit more about what the functionalities of data analysts. So data analysts, they ensure that the stakeholders get reports. So whether it's monthly, whether it's weekly, whether it's whatever duration or schedule that stakeholders require the reports, that's what the data analyst would ensure that that cadence occurs. And then they perform market analysis. You are able to look at a set of data and try to see what is happening behind the numbers. And also, they help to magnify the hidden insights in the business requirements or in the data, basically, as they attempt to learn. So they take information about specific topics, they interpret that information, analyze, and present their findings in a comprehensive report. They also help decision makers to reflect on the work they do, and customers, and as well as determine what factors would affect the growth of a business, whether it's a small, medium, large enterprise. You'd always require the service of a data analyst because they help you to have gainful insights into your business process. It could be as simple as a logistic company that needs to track how often they get deliveries to a particular region and how profitable delivering to that region is. And this is just a very simple example of where data analyst can shine very fine. Okay, so we have an example here. You can see that here on this graph, this image, it looks a bit busy, but here this is just a sample of what a data analyst has to do on a day-to-day basis. You can see that you can see different graphs around, you can see maps, and you can see different information there. And this is practically an example of a day-to-day life of a data analyst. You should be able to give insights into what is happening. And in this case, it's infant mortality. They want to talk about the magnitude, inequities, and trends. And you can see that each graph defines what they are trying to talk about. And it is no secret that the human brain is wired to store visual or graphical information faster than just words. And so this is where the data analysts come to help us tell stories about the data that they have, and helps make us feel the impact of whatever insights they have discovered, basically. Okay, so we can go to the skills required for a data analyst. You need SQL, like I mentioned earlier. That's for the technical side. Data visualization skill, and then you need Microsoft Excel. That's the very base of one of the skills you require to be a data analyst. Then non-technical skill, you need to be analytical thinking. Of course, you should have a knowledge of the business domain that you're going to be working with, your flair for problem solving, this creativity. Of course, this is built over time. As the number of problems you solve increases, that also becomes very a flair for you. And communication as well as collaboration. And like I said, I mentioned earlier, data analysts are in very high demand across so many industries. Every sphere of the world relies on data, and every sphere of the world needs data to make decisions, whether as individuals, whether as corporate entities. Regardless, we all need data, and this is where data analysts come in and shine. So we'll go to the next one, called data scientists. The data scientist, and I tag them the cats. Now, one of the things, or one of the beautiful things about cats is that they're curious, right? That's why they say cat has 9 lives. So they try as much as possible to try things out, and then they keep going back. The curiosity is what we tag to data scientists. Now, who are data scientists? Data scientists are folks in the data space who find answers to questions like what happened, why it happened, what will happen, and what can be done with the results. And I usually would tag them as the people who look into the future. So they are able to even answer some questions before it even happens. So they are able to say, this thing is going to happen based on this data, and we can mitigate or we can allow this to happen, basically. Now, data science combines certain principles and practices from the fields of mathematics, statistics, artificial intelligence, and software engineering to analyze large volumes of data and provide meaningful insights. Your core skill sets for being a data scientist requires SQL, Python, R, or Java. So you should have a strong knowledge of a scripting language, basically, whether it's Python, whether it's Java, whether it's R. You need to have one core scripting skill set. Your knowledge of statistics is very important. Machine learning, visualization tools, communication skills, and collaboration. So the salary range goes between 45 to 93K pounds per annum. And in this case, experience is actually required. So go to a practical example of where you see data science shine. And this story multiple times has been told by my friend and colleague, Joseph Akonde, who's on this call, where when he lived in the UK, a company called Don Humby, right? They were able to basically do some sort of product arrangement. And I think that it's even common everywhere. If you go to stores, most stores here in Europe, you would see that certain items are placed side by side, basically. So you buy the place where they place bread, beside it you would see butter. It's not just a random thing. It's something that was done using data. So they estimate to say, hey, we know what are the chances that people buy X and also buy Y. So that's something we call product combination. And then we find out the possible combinations for a particular product and set them accordingly so that you don't have to roam around the store in different parts looking for individual items. And another example he also shared was the story of a young lady who basically was predicted to be pregnant even while she herself didn't know. And that was because of the fact that she ordered for an item late at night. And that item, some of the statistics showed that only someone who was pregnant or only a pregnant person could have placed an order for that item. And so this is a very practical example of how data scientists help answer hidden questions even before we as a business or even before we as individuals think of it. So we'll go to the next one, which is the data engineers. Great. The data engineers, I'll call them the builders. And think of the data engineers as people, we call them, is it foremen, people who come and make your foundation. You're building a house, you need to create the foundation, and that's what data engineers do. Now, data engineers are responsible for collecting, managing, and converting raw data into information that can be interpreted by stakeholders. Simply what that means, or simply put, is that data engineers are the foundation for any of the data processes. So you need data to become a data scientist, to become a data analyst. At the very core of it is data. How that data is gotten, how that data is moved from point A to point B, stored, transformed, cleaned, etc., is where the data engineers stand tall, basically. They help to ensure that all of this information is cutting across different sources, different systems. Now, skills needed for a data engineer includes SQL. You should have a programming knowledge or background, and you can learn this. You need either Java, Python, Scala, etc. You do need a programming skill. And then your knowledge of data modeling comes in handy, because you want to know how you want to store the data so that it doesn't eat up too much space. You want to know how to store the best way to actually retrieve this data so that it is optimal. You should have a knowledge of ETL or ELT, which simply translates to extraction, load, transformation, or extract, transform, and load. And then your ability to communicate is very essential. Your analytical and problem-solving skill comes in handy. Now, salary range for this role goes between 44 to 87 K pounds per annum, and of course, you build experience over time, and you can actually even go higher. In summary, data engineers build systems that enable the collection and usage of data by analysts and data scientists, and generally every business stakeholder. Data engineers ensure that data is usable by employing the processes to ensure that the data is good enough for processing and cleaned properly. Now, they also develop and design end-to-end processes, including the transformation of the data. They ensure that the data that is collected is validated. That means it meets the business requirement qualities, and it also it's well summarized, right? They also enable data accessibility in the organizations, right? Ensuring that the data is available to stakeholders that need to use the data. And of course, this includes your data analysts, your data scientists, and generally every business stakeholder. Okay, so we'll see an example of something that tends towards, or some like a day-to-day life in a day-to-day activity of a data engineer. So you can see just a very good example. We have data coming from an API or a storage system or a database. In this case, it's MySQL. It could be anything, any database technology. And then that data goes to an SQS, which is like a queue system. And then it pushes that to a couple of processes. Here we look at Lambda in Amazon, and in some cases we store that data in S3. In some cases it goes to a database management system, and then we still have like some processing within it, and then we push that data to probably a destination like a warehouse, a data warehouse, which can be Redshift, it could be anything. And then what happens is that we have another process that will do it, that would schedule the regularity of that data process. That means which have a cadence of that data flowing from point A to point B. You have a system that automatically does that. Basically, you set up that system. You could use either Airflow, you could use Lugi, you could use any tool that you want, and then push that data to the data warehouse. And then from there, it is then used by the data analyst and the data scientist, either to build the reporting framework or to build data models or data insights in terms of machine learning models, basically. And this is just a sample of what data engineer does. And then we look at the skills required. So like I mentioned earlier, the technical skills required for being a data engineer is your ability to understand SQL. So SQL is really important. If you look at all the roles we have shared for data, SQL stands out. It's one tool that you can't run away from. Or NoSQL for data engineers. You can use either SQL or NoSQL, and NoSQL means unstructured data, basically. Your ability to understand Git, that's the version control. You need a knowledge of a programming skill, which is, it could either be programming language, it could either be Java, Python, Scala, etc. Anyone. You need the knowledge and understanding and the knowledge of data warehouses and databases, and infrastructure and DevOps. For non-technical skills, you would require analytical thinking, of course, problem solving, creativity, which you build over time, communication, and you have to be a team player. So essentially, data engineers try to automate all the data flow processes. So we'll go over the summary of all of these roles I have mentioned, or we've done a deep dive on. So basically, again, for a summary, data architects, they create database designs, they evaluate and model the customer data or business data requirements, and they prepare design reports. But data analysts, they analyze data to identify trends and patterns, they define key metrics, and they represent data effectively with dashboards and reports. For data scientists, they apply statistical techniques and machine learning to data to answer business questions or build a product. And for data engineers, they gather, organize, and maintain data for the company with data pipelines. So in essence, that brings us to the next topic, which I would gladly hand over to Tokes. Thank you, Tokes. You can continue from here on.
Thanks, Dixon. Can you guys still hear me? I guess you can. I can also hear myself.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so the first thing is, how can we help? How can we help? How can we help? How can we help? First thing is training. So we have a very strong team of people that can help with your training. So I spoke about Sheyi earlier. So Sheyi is the person I help. She's a business intelligence, senior business intelligence expert with Zalando. So lots of experience working across telecoms, across fintech. So she used to work in telecoms in Sweden as well, worked for Airtel in Nigeria, also worked for Conga. We've got Clement. Clement worked for Amazon. Clement worked for Needs in Nigeria, worked for Conga, and now works in the UK for Friends MTS. We've got Joseph, aka Puka. He used to work for a company called Klarna. Klarna is one of the biggest fintechs in the world, and now works for a company called Hape. And then we've got Dixon that you just listened to. He's looking much younger in this photo. You can see he's an old man now with his afro. So that's the first thing we can do. We can help you with training when it comes to data, and there are a few other things as well, but today we're just focusing on data. The other thing we can help you to get is work experience. So as part of our training, the way the training is designed, there's the training element and there's the work experience element. So we have work experience element where you have access to a pool of experts, trainers, so these 4 guys and a few other people who you'll be working on a project that has about 2 million records. This is similar to, or even better than you would have on the job. So what this does is it exposes you to what working as a data analyst would be like. So to stretch you so that when you go for an interview, for example, you would already be able to talk like, I've got the experience, because you'll have the experience. So we'll give you an opportunity. So Dufuna is a UK registered company. You'll be a data analyst with Dufuna. It's unpaid, but I think the least we can do is at least help you step on that bridge so that you can have that experience. You'll be supervised by world-class professionals. So the 4 guys have put their face in there. We have access to a bunch of other people and all that. Yeah. And job prep support. So reviewing your CV, this is my expertise. Spend a lot of time because I've had a lot of people. So the first thing I do is look at people's CVs and just quickly help you format, take things out that you don't need to. So there's a stat I saw a while back that the average CV, the recruiter will probably spend about 20 seconds looking at your CV. So if you can't grab their attention on the first part that their eyeballs will hit, if you don't grab their attention, your CV is going in the bin. And that's one part of it. In the UK, you also have all these automated systems that actually look for keywords on your CV. So your CV needs to have the right words on it. And these are the things we will help you to do that will help your CV to pop up. So you can imagine, like, when I apply to Google is obviously different. So when I apply to Google, for example, when I applied to Google, there were like, I think that year Google got like a million applications. I heard that last year or 2 years ago, they got 2.5 million applications. So, I mean, let's face it, no human being is going to go through 2 million CVs, right? They have to have a way. So there are certain things that will be prompted to look for on that CV that get that CV to rise to the top. You could be the best in the world at that thing. If you don't have the right things on your CV, no one is going to see it. So we'll help you with making sure your CV gets the right level of visibility. We'll help you with interview prep. So if you need to, as part of the training anyway, there are always interview questions, always like this, this is what's expected at interview. Also because, the trainers themselves are hands-on practitioners. They're not just lecturers who have studied the theory. They work on the job, so they know what is required for the job. Then there's on-the-job mentorship. So when we're not going to leave you alone. So you got a job, you need help, you've got a problem somewhere. We've got a network of people you can reach out to at any point in time. Obviously, we have to talk about money as well. So our bootcamp costs 550 euros, so it's less than 500 pounds. So if you're interested, I'll give you a screen where you can register soon. You can pay 183 euros per month for 3 months. What you're getting with that, you're getting training, you're getting like a UK reference for work experience, so we can give you that, and you're getting on-the-job support. So help you with like all the things I've said earlier, coach you for preparing for interviews, help you look at your CV, help you, like even when you're working on the job, you have a question, you need to know a tool, you need mentorship in a particular area, you get all that. So 550 euros comes out by 483 pounds. So that's it. So if you're interested, while we take questions, I'll just put the next link. So you feel free to copy that link. You can scan the QR code. You can scan the QR code. You can go to that URL and register. So while you are doing that, by the way, for those who joined late, we've recorded this session, so we'll send it to everyone so you can look at it again and you can share with your friends. So we'll take questions. I'll answer as many as I can. I've also got Dixon here to answer questions. I'm sure Joseph will also be able to help as well. We've got lots of people. So one of the reasons I'm really excited about data is the potential and the future. And right now, when I started the data engineering team at Conga in 2014, I didn't even know that 9-10 years later, it will become so topical. So right now, every organization is looking at their AI strategy because of everything we've heard about ChatGPT. But the reality of the matter is we can talk about AI as much as we want to, and the AI is going to be powered by data. And who's going to work on data? It's the data engineers, it's the data analysts, it's all that. So this is getting you onto that pipeline, getting you onto that process of being able to get into a profession that has a lot of future security, that is highly in demand, and where the salary opportunities are there, and also where there's also a shortage. So I was speaking to someone I used to work with way back, who now runs a company in the Netherlands, and they're looking for data engineers. They can't find enough. But the first step is getting onto that data analysis pipeline. The data analysis bootcamp, we cover things like, we start from, you don't need to have any experience, any knowledge really, because we start from Excel, start working through Excel. So you do Excel, from Excel, we do introduction to Git so that you can collaborate with other developers, with engineers, takes you down the technical road. We take you through SQL or SQL. We take you through Power BI. We introduce you to Python. So Joseph just came from a class where he was teaching Python earlier today. She is a Power BI expert. Dixon, the person I just spoke right now, is a SQL expert. So, and then we also, after Python, we now take you through advanced SQL. So by the time you finish that job, you have the skills to be a fantastic data analyst, and we start preparing you to actually be on the path, on our data engineering path. So the opportunities are there. If you've got questions, type them in, or you can raise your hand if you want to talk. We'll take your questions, ask any questions. Your questions can be about data analytics or data analysis, or it can be about any other area of tech where you've got experience, or if you just ask any questions at all. Anything that has to do with settling down, getting a job in the UK, also like sponsorship. I know for most people who are here on like student visas or with the 2-year whatever, you'll be thinking about sponsorship. We may not have a lot of experience, but I know a bunch of people that have actually been able to transition. So again, I can touch on that from there, what they told me. So obviously in my time, the requirements are completely different. Now it's different, but I see more and more companies. There are actually 2 people who've gone through Bufuna who now work in the UK. One works as a DevOps engineer. She was sponsored. Another person works as a software engineer for a company called Aviva, sponsored as well. So yeah, we can provide as much information as possible. Don't be shy. Ask all the questions. We'll take them. So we've got some time to take questions, and then we can wrap it up. But if you're interested, you can save this for later. You can share this with your friends. We have a bunch of capable, really, really capable professionals who can help you go down this path. Thank you. Right. Okay. So delivery method is we have classes on Saturdays. And then, so the way it is, you get pre-reading material, classes on Saturdays where these professionals will be there to take classes. And those classes are recorded. Then during the week, we've got like a support team. So we've got a bunch of experienced support people who they know the topics. They know SQL, they know Git, they know Power BI. If you have problems during the week, they're there to support. So we add it to like our Slack group, and you automatically join that community. So you get help. So that the method of delivery is multifaceted. Actually, there's online classes over the weekend on Saturdays. There's one-to-one support if you need help with a particular topic or a particular issue, and you need someone to actually help with that. You can book a session with someone. People are always available to help. So that's the method of delivery. So we both do classroom online, and then we do one-to-one support where the case may be. If you need tutorial, you need help with a particular topic, there are people to do that for you. So we actually dedicate a lot of time to making sure you understand what it is that we're doing. Yes, please ask the question. I think I may need to join from my phone again. Sorry if you're talking, I can't hear you yet. Okay, sorry, can you repeat yourself? Okay, so there's a question here about reviewing your CV to suit UK employers. Like I said, yes, it's one of the services we provide. We don't do supply chain. So supply chain is not something we do. So I don't know enough about supply chain. Although I did an MBA in the UK, I got from Crawford University. They have a big supply chain opportunity. I know someone that works in supply chain. So if you want to reach out to me afterwards, I'm happy to maybe connect you with the person I know if the person is happy to support. Omobalaji Shofoluwe, does that answer your question? Okay, my email address is here, so feel free to reach out to me by email. The good thing though about data and data analytics is in almost every field, with marketing, supply chain, operations, requires some of this knowledge. So from Excel to SQL. So even if you're not going down the data route per se to build a career in data, it gives you the skills that employers are looking for in addition to the experience you already have. So that's another consideration. Any other questions? Wow, please ask. A lot of people here that can answer those questions. Don't be shy. Okay, so that's my email address. You can also reach out to info@dufuna.org if you have questions. But even if you have any other questions that you think we may have covered it, feel free to ask. I mean, we've got a few minutes before we let you go. So I'll put your email addresses there. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. We'll send out the recording, listen to it. If you're interested in the course, if you have any other questions about the course, reach out, let us know. We're here to help. Okay. If there are no questions, then I think the course is not. Yeah, so as I was saying, sorry about that. I lost connection on my other whatever. The course isn't free. So on the website it's $750, but we have an early bird discount. So it's going for $550 right now. So if this is something of interest, reach out, let us know how we can help. Any other questions? Does that answer your question about free? Oh, the job says, okay, let me put it there, jobserve.co.uk. There are lots of job sites, but this one is really good. I find it to be very useful. There's also total jobs. .co.uk. Obviously, there's LinkedIn. There are a few other sites, but I found JobServe to be very, very effective. So if you want to find out more about the course, that's the QR code and that's the link there. You can pay for the course per month. If you want other payment arrangements, you can reach out. We can discuss it if possible. Like I said earlier, what we do is we support you until you get a job. And we have, lots of people that we have worked with in the past who have gone down this path. Put in the hard work, we know definitely you do well. So, like I was saying earlier, the earlier data engineering team, all the guys you've seen 4 of them here. There's a lady called Philippa. Philippa works for Citigroup as a data person there as well. It's Abayomi works for Jaguar Land Rover. So they've all had very successful careers in the data world, if that's something that's of interest. There are other people who didn't quite start out as data engineers, but they kept on working on data. There's a particular gentleman now who's like a data architect, I think, for Google. So he didn't even start he wasn't part of my team, he was part of the business team at Conga, but he kept on building on data. We learned SQL from some of these guys. kept on working on it. Now he's doing really well with Google. So there are opportunities as long as you're willing to put in the work. But our job here is to help you and support you until you get there. Final call for questions before we let you all go and have a very lovely Saturday.
Thank you very much, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. So I've been doing some pushing underneath, so that's the reason why you've not been seeing. I've got two questions. I've been doing some. I've got two questions, and underneath, I've been trying to talk to a few of our students. Anyway, for us, thank you for. Let me first say thank you very much for this opportunity. It's a very big one for us. My own name is Henry. I finished from Lincoln University. I finished my master's February this year, and ever since then, I've been trying to put my feet. I've done my BA class from a school called Accelerator Business School in Canada, and I've completed the course, so I still have access to the class, and I've got my capstone to finish up, which is still giving me back some little challenge. The first question is that on that note, can you provide any assistance for me personally? My capstone project. That's number one. Number two, on the data analytics, we in the the students here, I've been trying to push and push. I was expecting that we'll have more than this number of people, and as we were talking, I keep reminding all the students, but it seems many of us were maybe we had a seat last night and everybody's tired, everybody needs to sleep. I would sincerely appreciate if we could have this video so that I can as well post back to the group and see if they can listen to it. What is the timeline for we to start the next quad? And
Okay.
for those of us that might miss the Saturday class, all because we need to go to work, what is the table? I mean, what is the provision for that, please?
Okay. So I'll take I think you've asked a bunch of questions. First, thank you for all the work you did in trying to get people to sign up and to join. So it's really appreciated. I appreciate all the efforts you put in. So what I'll say is to support with, so let me put it this way. Our job or our desire and our mission is to make sure that it's support you until you get a job, right? So that's the first thing that I'll just say. So now if you join our, like you have, so Clement, you've joined our data analysis class. So the next course starts in December 2nd. So you've started taking some courses. We'll support you with anything else that you need to know. So if you need to work on your business analysis capstone project, for example, we've got people in the team that can support you with that. So we are not going to say, oh, you only paid for data, therefore this is all we can help you to do. At the end of the day, what gives us joy and what gives us fulfillment is you come, you join us, and you make your way onto getting a job. So we'll support you with that. Yes, we'll make the video available so that you can share widely with everyone who wasn't able to make it. The next class starts on December 2. So that answers your second question. And if you're working on Saturdays and you can't make the Saturday class, like I said, we'll record the session, but also there will be support during the week to help you. So the Saturday class holds live, it's recorded. During the week, you can watch it in your spare time. And then during the week, if you need help, we have a support team that will be able to support you. So you're struggling with an SQL query, for example, we're all on Slack. You can ping somebody and say, hey, I've got issues with this, and there'll be somebody there to help you. So that's basically how things work. Somebody asked a question about, getting their CV ready for the UK market. Yeah, I mean, if you definitely join the course, help you with your CV. They said they've done a number of business analysis bootcamps, but they haven't gotten a role. If you reach out to me, I can have a chat with you on the phone just to help with that. Like I said earlier, in the UK, the emphasis is always on work experience. You can have certified blah 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 if you don't have experience to pack it up. That's why we've designed our own course the way it is, to include work experience at the very end, and you can basically have that on your CV. But it's only for people who show seriousness, because we also don't want people to go spoil the Dufuna brand out there and also spoil the chance of other people. So with our same consistency, you finish the module, you do all the homework and all the assignments and all the projects. We'll now put it on that point where you now work on the internship part of it, which basically gives you hands-on experience, and then happy to give you a reference as well. So that's with respect to that. There was another question. I've lost track of my charts. So Clement, if you want to ask a question, by the way, you can.
Okay, thank you very much. You just mentioned something regarding internship now. How does that work, please?
So for the data analysis, when you finish all the modules with all the projects, so like I said, it starts with Excel, goes to Git, goes to SQL, Python, Power BI, Advanced SQL. You finish all that, then during the capstone projects, what one of the guys that's taking the course right now, I just helped with reviewing his CV. The first role on the CV is Tufuna UK, to Technologies UK data analyst, and he's sending that CV out. So it helps him to get the CV down to, I think it's 1 page with the right keywords. Everything is there. So yeah, he's now basically been able to start looking for work. So he's able. I mean, this guy works he works in the social care industry. So he does that at night and weekends. With a certification and no data analysis experience, it's difficult to break in. But now he's able to put what we're doing, because he's working on a real e-commerce project. Like I said, 2 million rows of data. That gives him experience. If he goes to the interview, he can defend what he's done. So that's how that works. There was another question which I can't seem to find. I think I just lost the chance because my connection, I got disconnected on my computer. But I think I've answered most of the other questions. If I've not answered your question, please feel free. Okay, LinkedIn. Yeah, you're the one that said you've done 2 bootcamps. So LinkedIn is good, but again, LinkedIn is usually better for people who already have, they're already working somewhere. So yeah, they're already working somewhere. So because if you apply on LinkedIn, for example, the next thing the recruiter will do is to check your profile. So if the profile is not matching what's on the CV, they're highly unlikely to call you. But what I'll say is, you have my email address for this person who has this question. Reach out to me and I'm happy to have a chat with you. But basically, the bootcamp is not enough like that. You need some form of reference, some form of work experience reference. That's what I'll say. So if you don't have that, and I'm not saying this because I want you to come pay for the data analysis course. If you don't have that, what you can do is look for a place to volunteer. So I know back in the days, so for example, when my wife came to the UK, like I said, she's a lawyer. The first thing she did was she looked for like a small law firm where she was volunteering. So you could look for opportunities to volunteer in charities as a business analyst. Just build that UK work experience. Sometimes you need to invest in this. It's obviously not going to be paid, and you have to do it in your spare time. Or, excuse me, what you can also do is, where you are working right now, if you're doing any maybe working in the care sector or something, ask them if they have business analysis opportunities. You can take it up. Just make sure you've got something that's relevant to what you're looking for on your CV. So you can either ask for more responsibilities where you work right now. You can look for opportunities within the charity sector to volunteer. You can look for like people who have small companies to work for them for free, just to have that reference, because they want to see application. So the UK is not really about, like, I can't say this enough. Qualifications is one thing; it helps to open the door, but they are not after, oh, I've got 4 master's degrees and all that. Yeah, for many of you that have been here a couple of years, you see that, they don't really respect that. Unfortunately, the universities make money from it. It's a good opportunity to get us to spend our hard-earned naira, convert it to pounds, and come spend it in the UK. But it doesn't necessarily translate into jobs. So there are other practical steps you have to take. And if you reach out to me, I can support in any way I can, within reason, But obviously, if you're a member of the Dufuna community, there are more people that can also help. So it's not only limited to my own capacity. Any other questions? Okay.
I think someone raised that. Vanessa is raising her hand.
Vanessa, do you want to either talk or
Okay,
go on.
hi. Good morning. Okay, I think my network showed off at some point, so I want to get some things right. So the training allowance is 550 for those who are interested. I want to know, is
Yes.
it just the data analysis role or for any other, like the cyber security that was mentioned earlier and the rest? Is it for any of them or is just one?
So what we're doing right now, our focus right now is data analysis. So not
Okay,
cybersecurity. So we don't have a cybersecurity program right now.
okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
And then what's the duration of the training?
So so the third part of the course is 3 months. So in 3 months you go through all the training, but you can stay on for as long as, like I said, what we do is we support you until you get a job. So if you finish the training and you meet all the criteria, then we offer you that opportunity to stay on as an intern. You work on the projects, can work on several projects, and then also keep helping you with your CV, with interview prep and all that until you get a job. Then we can clap for you and say, well done. And then also maybe you become one of the people that when people need help, we say, speak to Vanessa. She's just gone through the process. So it's 3 months thoughts, and then after that, there's work experience.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Vanessa. Any other questions? Yes. Hake Egbewale. So yeah, feel free to reach out. Yeah, I think I'm a nice guy. I give people my time a lot. Maybe Dixon will differ. Puka, do you want to add anything actually? Maybe just say a few words so they can hear from your experienced voice. Puka has a let me hail him a little bit. He has a master's in advanced computer science from the University of Manchester.
I mean,
So sorry,
that,
Puka, before you talk,
yeah.
Abel, if you finish if the internship is automatic, we just want you to be serious. We don't want to give it to people who just don't show up, they don't do any work, and they say they're working as interns. So the internship is automatic, but we want you to finish the third part of the program because that's what you need to be able to do the work. So as long as you satisfy the requirements, you do all the homework, the project etc. of the third part, you automatically get an internship and you get that UK reference. So what I won't do is I won't lie for you as a reference, but I'm happy to give you a solid reference if you do the work. So what we won't do is this is not a shortcut to pay us some money so that we can give you a reference and you can get a job. No, we won't do that ethically. But we will support you. You show seriousness in getting the job done, then we will definitely we will stay there and say this person's hardworking, this person worked on the project, this person did all this and all that. But what I won't do is I won't lie, if you're not serious, I'm not going to support. So the internship is automatic if you finish the program. Does that answer your question, Kevin, about Kevin? Puka, over to you now.
Thank you, Toast. Thank
Expert
you.
data engineer, architect, everything.
Actually, to be honest, Toast brought me into this field. When I got back after my masters, I wanted to do more software engineering. And Toast told me during that time, this was late 2013 or early 2014. He said like data will be the future. So I believe in it. I mean, you guys can all see now there's so many large language models now. All of it is built on data. I know many people are afraid saying that data will take their jobs, but you guys, when if you're in the data field, then sorry, AI will not take your job, right? When you're in this field. I also want to say, like, we will also during the course, we will try and give you interview questions that we have experienced along the way. Interview questions so that we can also make you interview ready. We will try as much as possible to throw you with like much hands-on experience so that when you're going out, you're not just going out as if like when you've left university, they've just finished a lot of theory. But we'll make sure that there's a lot of practical work that okay, hands-on work as well. And when you go anywhere, you can back it up with the fact that okay, yes, I've done something. As much as possible, we're also going to introduce Git so that you can start to post on your GitHub account because a lot of IT recruiters have started moving away from looking at your CV to actually looking at your GitHub account. They'll like to see what kind of projects have you worked on, what kind of public repos have you contributed to. So I think it's really good. I started my own career. I'm a data engineer now. I started my own career as a data analyst. I will definitely recommend it, not because of that I want you guys to take the course, but because I feel like it's a fact in life that everybody should go through data analysis so that you get to see wherever you end up, whether you end up as the back-ended guys or the front-ended guys, but you understand how people use your data and what to show. But I wish you guys good luck along the way. If you have any questions right now, Tox said it's true. I don't know if Dixon agrees with it, but it's true. Tox is a good guy. So reach out to Tox if you have any questions about anything. We can answer your questions. We can guide you to things now. And hopefully see you guys when you decide that you want to start the course. Thank you, Tox.
Thanks, Joseph, aka Puka. So yeah, so that's it. That's us. Dixon, you've heard from. Joseph has told his own story as well. Like after his masters, he needed experience. That was it. Started by writing SQL, wrote loads and loads of SQL. So today he's a highly sought after. For pounds, the conversion of 480 divided by 3. My math is failing me now. So what's that? It's about 160 pounds a month. Abel? Yeah, about 160 pounds a month for 3 months. Yeah. So yeah, so basically that's it. And one thing that I've learned as well is work experience. It just gets better. Your education basically opens the door to experience. So once you get onto that experience, the next thing is that's how you build. So I've just got my nephew and all that just got into university this year. Immediately, I just told him, look for internships. You need work experience. There's not a lot of respect in this market for, oh, I've just got X number of degrees. The way we pile on degrees in Africa, which has its benefit. I'm not, like I said, I've got a master's, so I'm not saying degrees are bad. I'm just saying that we need to learn to apply it. So whatever you've learned, experience is a great place, work experience is a great place to apply the knowledge you've gained. And that's what we do. We help you translate all that theory into practice. And the way this program is designed, it is designed to be very practical. From day one, there's a project. And that project is similar to what you'll find on the job. Again, these are all practitioners, all people who work as senior guys in the data field. So they're able to, and I've spent a lot of time interviewing people and all that. So that's what I bring in. And also as a senior manager, just looking at reports and asking questions and interviewing all that. Anyway, not to oversell, that's us for today. Thank you so much for making our time. I know Saturdays are precious. For some people, they go to work. For some people, they work throughout the week. So making our time to actually join us, we don't take your time for granted. If you have any other questions, please reach out to those email addresses. There's info@dufuna.org and there's talks@dufuna.org. So feel free, please, to reach out to us. And yeah, I'm happy to take questions, happy to help. I'll put my UK number here as well. So feel free, you can send me a WhatsApp message. Happy to take messages. Even if you're not taking the course, just reach out. Happy to provide guidance, help, whatever it is. I can connect you with people if there are people in my network that I think can help. So that's it. Thank you so much for everything, and I look forward to connecting with you guys again in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, guys.